Hi folks, you're with Tassus today. Tassus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about, and I've noticed it's more at the stage of whispers now, I guess, or inference and suggestion, but a number of white papers and discussion papers and media pieces, editorial type pieces that are canvassing the idea, and I think it's part of a softening up process, but canvassing the idea that Western citizens really shouldn't own private real estate. This is in the World Economic Forum spirit of you'll own nothing and be happy, where communism is forced on all of us, but they still jet around in the private jets and eat the top cuts of steak and so on. They can still own shit. It's just the rest of us. And I really do think that's where it's heading. Going back to the days of the feudal aristocracy and the feudal serfs, or a modern sort of approximation of that. Now, the claim is that Australia, the whole white Western, or particularly the Anglosphere, but the white Western world, Australia, Canada, Britain and the US have almost exactly, I mean within 1%, had exactly the same level of private home ownership. So it's claimed. So supposed, Professor so-and-so of University of such and such in America says, and Professor so-and-so of University such and such in Australia says. So in every place, they've got the supposed alleged academic that comes in and says, 65% of all property, this is residential property, is owned, and so only 1/3 is rented and 2/3 is owned, and it's exactly the same across all of these different areas. And strangely, the academics in each area are saying almost exactly the same thing word for word. So straight away we can see the dirty, filthy paw prints of the globalists on this. The orchestrated message. We're all being herded like sheep in a particular direction. It was the same, by the way, in all things that the globalists try and do. 65% of all women are abused by their husbands, and it's exactly the same figure in all the Western countries. Australia the same, as America, as Canada, as Britain, and New Zealand, it was all the same. And of course, this was patently absurd. But that's when they're doing the coordinated messaging. That's how they do it. And Professor Emeritus of University so-and-so says, well, it has to be true then. Do you disagree with that, you damn fucking Nazi? So we can straight away call that into question. 2 out of every 3 people own their own home. Now, it's a bit fuzzy. Do they own it, or do they have a massive mortgage on it, or how are they defining ownership? And that's rather vague, because the relationship between house prices and ownership and capacity to have a mortgage and this sort of thing has changed quite drastically over the years. I mean, I'm just going back to my favourite. The first apartment I ever rented was $20 a week. That same apartment today is now $500 a week to rent, and you're getting less. There used to be like a communal laundry, excuse me, a communal laundry with washing machines and dryers and so on. And that's that area, or that room, if you like, which was quite sizable, has been turned into an apartment itself. So that's gone. There was quite a large area that was for storage, and so you got quite a decent sized storage unit. That also has been turned into an apartment. So that's lost. So there are various, so you're not getting as much for your money, but what was $20 a week when I was a kid is now $500 a week. Now, over that same period, wages only increased by 8.5 times. So, effectively the rent is just shy of 3 times more expensive in purchasing power terms than it was then. So that's a huge difference. I remember even as a kid out of not long out of school, out of college, the average wage was I was spending something like 17% of my net wage after tax and everything. I was spending 17% of my net wage on rent. This is on the average wage, by the way. Now, if you look at the average wage today, and this was quite a small apartment, but if you're looking at the average wage today in Sydney, as in net wages, that rent today would be just over 50% of the average wage. So less than 20% of the average wage for rent back on the average, the average wage back then to over 50% today, and it was quite a small apartment. So, and if you look at mortgages, the same. The first house I bought, the price is nearly 20 times more than the price I paid for something that's unimproved. It's exactly the same house, not like I've added a luxurious swimming pool or something. And the same goes again for other houses I've bought. The house I bought for $190,000 today is worth $2.1 million, and on it goes. So the idea that home ownership is exactly the same in 1970 in percentage, exactly the same as it is today, is simply absurd. I don't believe that's even close to being true. Now, in areas where there are older people living, where they bought their houses maybe when they're in their 20s and they're now in their, for example, 60s or 70s, something that I think would have a high level of ownership, but not the younger people coming through. So anyway, the bottom line of these things is, why don't you just sell your house, your home where you live, sell it to like one of the big investment firms like BlackRock, or an international real estate investment firm that's very much on board with the globalist project. Why try and keep it? Why not sell it to them? And look at all that money you're going to get. And look at all the consumer goods and the trinkets you can buy. So not only do you then become a renter and not an owner, and thus have no stake in society, you've got all this money to go out and buy baubles and trinkets, and that will turbocharge the economy. And I think this is the way they're going. What my sort of take on this, or I'd speculate that they're not so much going to say you have to do it. They'll just force you to do it. If you sell your house to BlackRock, you won't pay any tax. But if you try and hand it on to your kids, or hang on to it, or this or that, then it'll be heavily taxed. I would think it'll go something like that. And I think there's also the case with retirement savings and superannuation and that sort of stuff. I think if you want to hand it on to your kids, you'll pay like an inheritance tax. But if you want to donate it to BlackRock, or you want to spend it on consumer goods, you won't pay the tax. So I think they're heading down that path to make sure that the intergenerational movement of money is all broken up and disrupted and destroyed, to officially turn everyone into a serf. You've been with Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.